Oh, hi, everybody. My name is Matt Storrs, and welcome to Mattsplaining. On today's episode, I have an expert on who I'm very excited to speak with. Expert, please introduce yourself and tell us what you're an expert on.
Hi, Matt. Thank you very much for having me on. I'm very excited to be here. My name is Robyn, and I run the website Two Empty Passports with my husband Gavin. We are slow travel experts. So, trying to see and explore this world one passport stamp at a time. We have a goal of visiting 50 by 50, and I'm here to share a little bit more about slow travel.
Fantastic. I feel like I'm a big proponent of slow travel, always have been. On family road trips, I was the one that growing up in Arizona that was always insistent on stopping at every roadside attraction that we could. And so, because of that, I've seen some of the best and brightest holes that Arizona has to offer. So, we're talking the Grand Canyon, we're talking Sunset Crater, which is a collapsed volcano, and then we have Meteor Crater, which is caused by a meteor. But the interesting thing most recently is that when you go to these roadside attractions, these exciting things that are on the side of the road, whether it's the giant ball of twine or what have you, you have the capability of lasting connections with the people you see it with. So, like for instance, with Meteor Crater, recently my mom called me and was like, Matt, did you hear Meteor Crater burned down? And I'm like, Mom, that can't happen. It's already a hole in the ground. Like, did the visitor center burn down? Did like the place where the astronauts trained at the bottom of it burn down? She's like, I don't know. I read an article that Meteor Crater burned down. And I'm like, I looked it up. It took me 5 minutes to, do, a little bit of research. And I have no idea what my mom was referring to, whether it was like a house nearby or anything like that. But because we had been there, we had shared our space or astronaut ice cream when we were young, that allowed us to reconnect over that. And I think that's the main thing that kind of connects the idea of slow travel is that when you do take that time and spend the opportunities you have with these people in these places that might be off the beaten track, that might not be the big and grand thing that you intended to go see. That is really the time that you really connect with people and get their insight of like, oh, this is really strange that I didn't really believe that somebody could collect that many rubber bands to make such a big rubber band ball. But I guess there are rubber bands that you would need to have for big things. They're not just custom ordering them for the rubber band ball. There are applications where you could find them. And then in terms of passport usage, it's very important to update your passport. You don't want to be in a position where you get to the border and then you have to bring a bunch of extra documentation to try and prove who you are, because that's just an extra level of stress. And then if you get a border agent who is not even going to ask you any questions about those documents, then you've stressed out quite a bit and they just wave you through, for instance, and that way you've stressed out for no reason. And so keep your passport updated and be sure to do it a few months before you are traveling, definitely. And then don't overlook the opportunities when something goes wrong on your travels. So like let's say the something that happened to me. The whole United Kingdom's air traffic control got shut down one day. So I got stuck in Dublin for a couple of days. And a lot of people, they might be upset if they're stuck in Dublin or stuck in a place that they didn't intend to be, but you can make the most of it. If you're traveling someplace, you can take the time to see some of the sites, to see things that you never would have expected to see or expected to have the opportunity to see. For instance, I was able to have authentic Irish food and drink. I went and I had a Guinness as per people would do, and then I had it with the traditional food that they have, which is Mongolian barbecue. Wow, this is just so amazing. At the culinary forefront of what you can do, you got to keep it authentic whenever you can. And so I think that that's really important. And so ultimately, slow travel is about kind of finding ways to unite with the people that you're with and maybe even unite with yourself of finding things that are unexpected and taking the time to look for things that strike your interest, strike your excitement, so to speak. Now, based on what you've heard so far, about how much of that would you say was accurate?
I'm gonna say that I was very impressed. I'm
Okay.
gonna give you, yeah, that was actually amazing. A 4.5 out of 5 stars.
Oh wow, that's amazing. That
I'm
is
very impressed. Well
oh
done.
wow. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, I was not expecting a rating that high. What is your background with slow travel?
Oh, I do have a question
Oh,
before we
go
jump
ahead.
into that.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit more about your border control experience and then not asking you any questions.
Oh
Where was
yeah. Yeah, so coming over from the American side I was going to Montreal, and my partner had applied to get a passport, had applied to get the temporary IDs. And so we had compiled all of the documentation that would work as an alternative, and we handed it to the border agent, and they did look it over. They did, verify it, but we thought that it was going to be a, pull off process where you go to the side and like they ask you a bunch of questions and everything like that. But ultimately, it was a very fast and easy process.
Yes, I actually had a very similar process last year.
Hmm.
My husband and I, we actually rented our house out for the year.
Okay.
So an example of slow travel, and packed up our car and our dog and drove down through the states into Mexico and actually into Honduras and Guatemala. And the border control, I would say, was super disappointing and shocking when you're carrying that much across the border, and especially with the dog.
Hmm.
None of the border controls checked our vehicles, asked for our pet documentation. We were shocked. We were able to leave Mexico without a stamp or even saying adios to anyone.
Oh, wow. Yeah. It's shocking how you want to play by the rules, so to speak, and follow all the procedures, but then like any job, people are going to be like, oh, yeah, this isn't that big of a deal. I'm not worried about this person. They know the things that they need to know. But at the same time, it's like I've been stressed out for 2 weeks making sure I have all the documentation in order.
Exactly. Exactly. We got so many shots and vet letters and everything ready to go and in a nice little package to present. We were stressing about it too,
Yeah.
for no reason, I guess.
That's sometimes maybe they can just see by the fact that you have a manila envelope or a clear plastic
Yeah.
envelope, and they're like, okay, they put the plastic envelope together, they probably have everything.
Yeah. It looks like they did their homework. They're good to go.
Exactly. Yeah, so what got you interested in slow travel?
I like slow travel because you get to learn more about the destination that you're in. I really prefer to spend a longer amount of time in each destination, whether that's the country or the town itself, and really kind of immerse yourself in the culture. I find that I don't like tours where you're rushing from place to place and you're only going to those capital cities or the super touristy things that you would find on any website that you look at. I kind of like to dig a little deeper where you're going and discover what makes that place unique. And sometimes that happens through just trial and error, as you mentioned in one of yours, just wandering and seeing what you uncover about the place without really having a guidebook in your hand, or joining something like a cooking class or attending a performance. I love those kind of experiences where you really get to kind of be up close and interact with the locals.
Absolutely. Are there particular examples where you were, particularly excited about like the performances you saw or something that you saw that was unexpected?
Yes, many actually. I I'm an art teacher also, so
Hmm.
I love art, and we look at local artists wherever we go. A couple years ago, we were in Victoria Falls in Zimbabwe,
Hmm.
and we were just kind of perusing this market and started chatting to the saleswoman about one of her paintings. And it got going that it was actually her husband who painted it, and he had a his studio nearby. So she actually brought us to the studio where we actually got to see all of his paintings kind of in the process of each state of being created, and actually got to have a one-on-one with the artist himself before we purchased the painting, which just meant, and now that it's hanging in my room, it just means so much more that I got to have that experience with the artist himself.
That is so amazing, just being able to like truly connect with somebody that you kind of resonated with their art and kind of found it fascinating. I imagine that was a really enjoyable experience.
Yes, hands down, for sure. We also attended a cooking class,
Hmm.
and that too, to learn about the food and the culture. It means so much more when you get to hear about their traditions and why a certain dish is kind of passed down and what the meaning is behind it. It just makes the memories of that trip so much more enjoyable than just a checklist of attractions that you were able to see.
Absolutely. If somebody was interested in getting into slow travel, what would be a good way to start out? Would it be like kind of doing research or just kind of jumping into it?
I would honestly say a little bit of research is always great because you do want to make sure that all of us have those bucket list itinerary items. So
Hmm.
making sure that, you do see that, but when designing your itinerary to leave it very open. Perhaps you only have one planned activity per day, and then the rest is your kind of heart guiding you where it wants to go and down these hidden alleyways or to a market that you never would find in a guidebook. So to leave a lot of free space when planning your itinerary. And I know you mentioned the road trip, and that is exactly how we actually prefer to travel because you have so much more freedom at your fingertips. You can stop at those off the road sites that you would again never find in a guidebook and maybe don't make any sense to you because you don't have a guide to explain them, but it does allow you to take away from that experience something that you wouldn't have had otherwise.
Absolutely. And just, being able to adhere to or give in more so to your whims of like, oh, that looks good. Like, oh yeah, some roasted corn on the side of the street, I have to drive a quarter mile to go get. Yeah, let's go do it. That's always been some of the, most fun that I've had when I've been on road trips. Do you have any travel plans coming up?
Yes, we're actually in the middle of planning and we're trying to decide of a second destination. We're headed to Iceland.
Oh, that's
Um,
fantastic.
yes, we are very excited. We're going with my sister. And so that we have scheduled some of the things, but we left a lot on our itinerary a bit open because we'd like to see, maybe there's a recommendation from your hotel, or if you do join a day tour, they can recommend a place where like locals hang out or maybe a little more immersive experience. So that's what we have planned so far. We are looking for another country to kind of tack on to Iceland. We usually like to go away for about 6 weeks to 8 weeks every summer.
Mhm.
So if you have any ideas, I would be open to hearing those.
Yeah, I mean, depending upon when you're heading out, and depending upon what you're interested in, you know, I know there's the Nordic Fringe Network. So I know a lot of the Nordic countries, including Iceland, have fringe festivals in the spring and summer this year. And so, that might be something that allows you to, kind of jump around and see some of, the local, theater and comedians and stuff like that. So
Oh, love that
that's
idea.
yeah. So I know there's, like there I know there's one in Stockholm, there's one in Oslo, there's all over the place. That's definitely something that's been on my radar of something that I'd be interested in. But yeah, I mean, also, just kind of being open with it. I think that if you're, going to be in Iceland, if you can, and it seems practical, maybe a little bit of time over in Greenland could be a kind of an interesting thing. It might be a little bit desolate in some areas, might not be worth it for the whole time. But then you could also going, someplace like Norway or Finland could just be kind of a delight. And, I think that could be unexpected adventures that could arise out of that.
I would agree. I like the way you think. We were exploring Norway in particular and the little towns along all the fjords, just kind of renting a car and again, not planning too much, but seeing what's out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I'm looking at the my desktop background right now, and it is a winter landscape of one of the towns in Norway. And just every single house is a different color. And I do think it's probably retouched a bit to make it a little bit more vibrant, but it's like these such bright houses on this white landscape and trees in the background. It's quite a delight. I think that would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I would agree. I would
Fantastic.
agree.
Fantastic. Robyn, this has been so much fun. If people wanted to learn more about you or more about slow travel, where would you recommend that they go?
They can definitely head to my website, to emptypassports.com, and they can check out a whole bunch of itineraries there. And we're expanding content all the time.
Wonderful. Yeah. Thank you so much, Robyn. I really, really appreciate you spending time with me today. And I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day and fantastic travels ahead.
I appreciate that very much. You too.
Thank you. My name is Matt Storrs, and this has been Mattsplaining. Before we go today, I want to thank Ryan Lawson, my dear friend and all-around okay guy, for making the theme music for Mattsplaining. And if anyone needs music production or mixing services for any of their projects, Ryan can be reached at beatblenderstudios@gmail.com or at Beat Blender Studios on Instagram and TikTok.